Looking back, I suppose the strangest thing about the summer of 1940 was how ordinary it seemed. The humans knew there was a war on, of course. You could hardly miss it. Soldiers had begun appearing everywhere, far more than I had ever seen before. They crowded onto trains, marched along the streets, and gathered in groups outside buildings, carrying their kit and talking amongst themselves. But to Wilf and me, the war seemed to be happening somewhere else. There had been rumours of bombs falling in the north of London and the occasional distant rumble that made windows tremble. But nothing had happened near our church. No bombs had fallen. No aeroplanes screamed overhead. As far as we were concerned, London was still London, and London had rubbish.
Over here,
Wilf called. I fluttered down from the church roof and landed beside him. Wilf was already halfway inside an upturned dustbin.
There's something good in here,
he said. That's a rather optimistic assessment, I replied.
You haven't looked yet.
I can see you have, I replied somewhat sarcastically. Wilf disappeared further into the bin and emerged triumphantly, holding a greasy paper parcel with his beak.
Fish and chips,
he exclaimed. So then I regarded it with considerably more interest. Well, that does alter matters, I replied. We settled beside the bin. The smell was magnificent. There were only a few chips left, and the fish was mostly crust. But we had learned long ago that a pigeon shouldn't be particular about such things. Wilf tore off a piece of batter.
Best meal we've had all week,
he said. Speak for yourself, I replied. I had a rather good crust of bread outside the baker's on Tuesday.
That wasn't a meal, Archie,
said Wilf. It was quite substantial, I told him. Wilf gave me the look he reserved for occasions when he thought I was being ridiculous. Then he stopped chewing.
What's this?
He said. What? I asked. He nudged the greasy newspaper with his beak. I looked down. The paper was old and stained with oil, but the large black letters across the page were still clear enough to read. I had always been rather proud of the fact that I could read. My time in Oxford had provided me with several advantages, although Wilf maintained that being able to read a newspaper was of very little practical use to a pigeon. I read the headline. British troops rescued from Dunkirk. I stared at it for a moment. Then I read the article beneath. The British Army had been trapped in France. Thousands upon thousands of men had been brought home across the Channel. Soldiers rescued from the beaches, ships, small boats, destroyers, civilian vessels, Dunkirk. I had heard the humans talking about it, of course, but until that moment I had never really understood what had happened. Wilf pecked at another chip.
What does it say?
The British Army has been rescued from France, I said.
Good.
I looked at him. Good.
Well, if they've been rescued, that's good, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose it is. I looked back at the newspaper. There were stories of soldiers standing on a beach, young men mostly. Some exhausted, others were somehow still smiling. Wilf was still eating.
Does it say where they are now?
He asked. I scanned the article. They've returned to Britain. Here. Presumably. Wilf looked around at the streets beyond the church.
That explains all the soldiers then,
he concluded. I nodded. For the first time, I looked at them differently. Until then, they had simply been part of the changing city. More uniforms, more boots, more lorries, more people carrying equipment. But now, I wondered what they had really seen across the Channel. I read further. Wilf finished the last chip.
Anything else interesting?
He asked. Quite a lot, actually, I replied as I continued reading. Wilf sighed.
Of course there is,
he said. That afternoon, neither of us noticed the sky. Neither of us knew that within a few days, London would no longer be a city merely preparing for war. The war was coming. To us. I suppose I should explain how I came to be living on that particular church roof in London. I wasn't born there. I came from Oxford. I had spent a considerable amount of my early life around the university. I discovered quite by accident that the large buildings with their tall windows were excellent places for a pigeon with an inquiring mind. If a window was left open, I could usually find somewhere nearby to perch and listen, and so I did. I listened to lectures on history, science, literature, philosophy, and all manner of subjects that, admittedly, were not always of any obvious practical use to a pigeon. But I found them fascinating. Of course, I understood some things better than others. I was particularly fond of history. Wilf would later tell me that this explained why I was so often boring. I would tell him that he simply lacked an appreciation of the subject. For a long time, before the war, Oxford was enough for me. There was always another lecture to listen to, another courtyard to explore, another open window to discover. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I began to wonder what lay beyond Oxford. I had heard humans talking about London as though it were the centre of the entire world. They spoke of its enormous buildings, its busy streets, its markets and its parks. So one morning, I decided to find out for myself. I flew south. I had no particular destination in mind. I simply followed the roads, the river and railway lines, stopping whenever I became tired and continuing when I felt like it. Eventually, I reached London. It was considerably larger than I had imagined. There were buildings everywhere, smoke rising from chimneys, buses rumbling along the streets, people rushing in every direction. I had no idea where I was going, so I landed on a church roof. It seemed as good a place as any. That was where I met Wilf. He was sitting on the ridge, looking down at the street below. He looked at me. I looked at him.
You're not from around here.
He said. How did you know? I asked.
You've got an Oxford look about you.
He said. I wasn't entirely sure what an Oxford look was, but I decided not to argue. Actually, I said, I am from Oxford. Wilf nodded, as though this confirmed something.
Thought so.
He said. And you? I asked.
London.
He replied. I see. There was a short silence. Then Wilf looked at me.
You hungry?
He asked. I was, and that was how it began. There was no great introduction, no formal exchange of names, and certainly no reason to suppose that we would become friends. But we did, almost immediately. Wilf knew London. I knew a little about almost everything else. Between us, we seemed to get along rather well. And before very long, that church roof became home. The morning of September the 7th began much like any other. The sun was already warming the stonework of the church when Wilf appeared beside me on the roof.
I've been thinking,
he said. This was really a promising beginning. About what?
Trafalgar Square.
He said. I looked at him. What about it? I asked.
We could go down there.
For what purpose?
Food.
Ah, that at least was a perfectly reasonable purpose.
There used to be plenty of food in Trafalgar Square.
Wilf continued.
Humans used to throw it everywhere. But that was before the war.
I know.
And before the rationing.
I know that too. Then why are we discussing it?
Because,
said Wilf,
sometimes humans drop things.
I considered this. That is a remarkably sound argument, I said. Wilf grinned. We took off together. The flight across London was familiar to me by now. I had been living there long enough to recognize the streets and buildings below. Although I still found myself looking at the city with the curiosity I had brought with me from Oxford. London was busy. London was alive. We eventually reached Trafalgar Square. Wilf was right about one thing. There was considerably less food than there used to be. We circled the square once, then twice. Then we flew upwards and settled on the top of Nelson's Column. From there, the view was magnificent. The whole of Trafalgar Square stretched beneath us. Humans moved in every direction, tiny from where we sat. Buses rolled through the streets, and the noise of London rose into the warm morning air. We settled down to watch the city. Suddenly Wilf said,
No one's got nothing.
I looked at him. You sound disappointed.
I am disappointed,
he replied. Neither of us had any reason to hurry, and neither of us knew that this was the last peaceful morning we would spend in London for quite some time. We had been sitting on Nelson's Column for ages when Wilf suddenly lifted his head.
What's that?
He said. I looked at him. What? I asked.
Listen.
At first I heard nothing unusual. Then very faintly came a sound from somewhere beyond the city, a low rumble. I turned my head towards the east. The sky was clear, bright blue, with only a few wisps of cloud.
What is it?
Wilf asked. I don't know, I said. As the sound grew steadily louder, around us, the humans began to notice it too. People stopped walking. A man in a dark suit looked upwards. A woman pulled a child closer to her. Within moments, more and more faces were turned towards the sky. Wilf shuffled closer to me.
Archie,
Yes?
what are they looking at?
I followed their gaze. At first I could see nothing. Then I spotted them. Tiny black specks far to the east, hundreds of them. I watched as the specks slowly grew larger. I had seen aeroplanes before, we both had, but never like this.
Are those German?
Wilf asked. I studied them carefully. I fear they may be, I replied. There were simply too many to count. The sound was becoming louder now, a deep, continuous drone that seemed to fill the sky. Then came another sound, the sirens. They began somewhere in the distance, their wailing sound spreading slowly across London. The square that had been so busy only moments before suddenly changed. People were running, the buses stopped. Shopkeepers disappeared into their doorways as windows slammed shut. I looked towards the eastern sky again. The formation was getting closer. Then the first flashes appeared in the distance. Tiny bursts of white appeared against the blue sky as the anti-aircraft gun began to fire. The sound reached us moments later. A deep, distant thudding. Then something happened that I shall never forget. The bombs fell, too far away for us to see them. But we saw the explosions and then heard them. Columns of smoke and dust rose into the sky.
Archie,
Wilf's voice was very quiet.
they're bombing London.
I looked across the city. Smoke was beginning to rise in several places now. The war that had always seemed so far away had suddenly arrived in our city. And for the first time in my life, I was truly afraid. The bombing did not stop. That first afternoon was only the beginning. When darkness came, the aeroplanes returned, and the following night, they came again. Soon, the sound of those aircraft became something we knew all too well. The sirens would begin. The humans would hurry into shelters, and then the sky would fill with the distant drone of engines. Many people went underground into the tube stations, where they slept on the platforms while the bombs fell above them. From our church roof, Wilf and I could see the glow of the fires on the horizon. At first, most of the raids seemed to be concentrated towards the east end and the docks. We could see great columns of smoke rising above the city during the day and glowing red against the night sky. After several days, we decided to fly east and see for ourselves. I wish we hadn't. The docks were almost impossible to recognize. Buildings that had stood for decades had been reduced to piles of broken brick. Warehouses were still burning, and smoke hung over the river. Streets, once busy with people, were filled with rubble and shattered glass. Wilf and I watched silently.
This is our London,
He said eventually. Yes, I replied, it is. We stared at the destruction.
They're going to keep doing this, aren't they?
He said quietly. I looked towards the sky. I fear they are, I replied, and they did. Later, as we watched from the church roof, we could see explosions much closer to our home. Wilf looked towards the city.
Archie, are they going to bomb everywhere?
He said. I had no answer for him. As we sat together on the roof, another raid had begun. Far above us, the dark shapes of the bombers were heading towards the heart of London. We watched in silence. Then, once again came the distant flashes. One after another, the explosions lit the night sky. Wilf looked at me.
We can't just sit here.
He said quietly.
We've got to do something.
I looked towards him, then back towards the aircraft high above. At first I said nothing. What could two pigeons possibly do against hundreds of bombers? And yet, as I watched another formation disappear into the darkness, a thought began to form. I began to realize that simply watching all this happening was no longer enough. Perhaps there was something we could do. I didn't know what it was, not yet, but suddenly I was determined to find out. The next morning, I looked towards the sky. We need to take a closer look, I said. Wilf turned towards me.
A closer look at what?
He asked. I pointed up. At those, I said. Wilf followed my gaze.
The balloons.
He said. Yes, I replied. Wilf looked at me. They were floating high above London, their steel tethering cables reaching down to the ground.
What are we going to do that for?
He asked. I don't know, I admitted. But if we want to understand the bombers, we need to get higher. Wilf looked upwards again.
They're far too high, Archie.
I know.
Much too high.
I know that too. For a moment, we just looked up in silence. Then I looked carefully at the balloons. There were several of them floating at different heights. The lowest one was not nearly as high as the others. I suddenly had an idea. Perhaps we don't need to fly all the way up there, I said. Wilf looked at me.
What do you mean?
I pointed towards the lowest balloon. We fly to that one.
And then?
We rest, I said, remembering my long flight from Oxford. Wilf stared at me.
On the balloon?
He asked. I pointed towards the next balloon. Then we fly to the next one and rest again, then the next. Wilf slowly looked from one balloon to another.
Until we reach the highest one?
I nodded. Exactly, I said. He was silent for a moment. Then he said,
That might actually work.
I think it will, I replied. Wilf looked at the sky again.
And if it doesn't?
He asked. I looked back at him. Then we'll find out. With that, we took off. The first balloon was still a long way above us, and as we climbed, the streets below became smaller and smaller. The lowest balloon seemed enormous as we approached. We flew around it and saw the steel cable stretched across its top. I touched down carefully, gripping the cable with my feet as the balloon moved gently beneath us. The wind was much stronger here than it was near the ground. Wilf landed beside me and we rested. I looked up towards the next balloon floating above us. Ready? I said. Wilf nodded. We took off again, flying from one balloon to the next, landing on the cables stretched across their tops and resting before continuing higher. The streets became narrow lines. The River Thames wound its way through the city like a silver ribbon. We kept climbing, higher and higher. Eventually, we reached the highest balloon. It was much larger than the others, and instead of the cables running across it, a huge net made from thick rope stretched across its top. Wilf stared at it.
What is that?
He asked. I didn't answer straight away. I edged closer, looking carefully at the ropes. The net covered the top of the balloon like a giant web. We had never been this high before, but even from here, the main group of bombers were still far above us. They looked like tiny, dark specks against the blue sky. But then something else caught my eye. Wilf, I called.
What?
Look down. Not far below us, a single German aircraft was coming almost directly towards us. And not terribly fast. We watched as it flew almost underneath our balloon, just far enough to avoid the cables. Then it slowly turned to the south and began to climb away. Suddenly, I had the feeling that this aircraft was doing something very different from the other bombers high above us. And I knew we had to find out what. For now, though, there was nothing more we could do.
We should go back,
Wilf said. I nodded. We carefully made our way back down, flying from one balloon to the next, until we reached the rooftops once again. The following day, we watched from our church roof, looking up to the highest balloon. Nothing happened. The next day, we watched again, and there, at almost exactly the same time, we saw the same German aircraft approaching the highest balloon. Once again, it flew slowly past, keeping just clear of the cables. Then, just as it had before, it turned towards the south and began to climb away. Wilf and I watched it disappear.
That's strange,
He said. Yes, I replied. It is. The following day, there was no sign of it, nor the day after that. But then it came again, and it did exactly the same thing. I kept thinking about what we had seen. It didn't come every day, but when it did come, it was always at almost exactly the same time. And it always flew past the same balloon, always from the same direction, and at almost the same speed. Then it turned south at almost the same place. Wilf, I said.
Yes?
I think we can predict when it will come. He looked at me. Not which day, I continued. But when it comes, we know roughly what time to expect it. Wilf thought about this.
So we could be waiting for it?
Yes, I said.
But why would we want to?
Said Wilf. That, I said, is what I'm trying to work out. We sat quietly on the church roof. I looked back towards the highest barrage balloon. Come on, I said.
Where?
Back up there. Wilf looked towards the balloon.
You think we should take another look?
He asked. I think we should, I replied. So, once again, step by step, we flew back up to the highest balloon and landed carefully on one of the ropes stretched across its top. This time, I looked at it differently. I moved slowly across the ropes, examining the way the net was held in place. The ropes weren't thick, but there were many of them, all secured around the balloon. I followed one of them with my eyes, then another, and suddenly I stopped. Wilf!
What?
Look at this. He came closer. I pointed to the ropes holding the net in place. If these could be cut! Wilf looked at me.
What would happen?
He asked. I looked across the net, then out towards the sky. The net might fall, I said, and if it fell at the right moment, I looked towards the city beneath us. The idea was beginning to take shape. If we could drop it in front of that aircraft, it might get caught, I said. We both stared at the enormous net. For the first time, I could see that it wasn't just something holding the balloon in place, but there was one very big problem. How were we, mere pigeons, going to cut the ropes? And even if we could, I had no idea whether it would work. We would only get one chance to find out. For the next few days, we went about our normal routines as best we could. The air raids continued night after night, no longer confined to the East End. The unnerving, eerie sound of bombs whistling down all around us, the thuds of explosions, the relentless bursts of anti-aircraft guns firing into the darkness. I couldn't stop thinking about the net. The idea seemed possible, but there was no way Wilf or I could cut through those ropes ourselves. We were pigeons. Our beaks were made for seeds, crumbs and berries, not biting through rope. Suddenly I had an idea. The zoo, I said. The next morning I looked at Wilf. We need something that can cut through those ropes, I said.
You still thinking about that?
Quipped Wilf. Yes, I replied. We have to do something. I looked up at other birds flying above the rooftops. What about another bird? I said. Wilf looked at me.
Another bird?
He asked.
How can that help?
A bird with a stronger beak, I continued. I began thinking about all the birds I'd seen around London. Some had sharp beaks, some were much larger than us. But we needed something much stronger, something that could bite through those ropes. Suddenly I had an idea. The zoo, I said. Wilf stared at me.
London Zoo?
Yes.
Why the zoo?
Because they have all sorts of birds there. I looked towards the north. I think they might have exactly the sort of bird we need, I said. Later that day, Wilf and I made our way towards London Zoo.